Today we talked to retired Michigan State coach who went through the unthinkable, the loss of a swimmer, and the eventual dismantling of a program that meant everything to so many. This episode encompasses grief, resilience, and what gets lost when the administration fails to see the importance of an Olympic sport and are too stubborn to admit that they made a serious mistake. By the end of this podcast, you'll learn how this coach was able to grieve the loss of an important program while investing into a different kind of happiness. However, the fight for the team is still very much so alive. And if you're interested, look them up on Facebook, Battle for Spartan Swim and Dive. They're very much so present there, and they have a lot of stuff coming up every day, still fighting for this team. We'll have more information at the end of this podcast, but for now, as usual, I'll shut up and let G tell his story. First kind of softball question I got for you, though. What led you to coaching in general? Because I know you came from swimming. Did you always know you wanted to be a coach, or recall you wanted to be a historian, and then somehow your path kind of took a hard left into coaching? How'd that happen?
Yeah, so I was a history major, and I think the original plan was to. My original plan was to get my PhD and then teach. Like that's what I really wanted to do. But when I was in graduate school in 1993, there was a push to diversify history departments, which actually was good because if you study what they call historiography, so like the history of history, like a lot of history study was done by one particular group of people, like old white dudes, mostly Southern. And so there was a push to diversify because it's really important when you're writing history to have different perspectives, right? So unfortunately for me, I was a young white dude who would eventually be an old white dude. So I was really fortunate because my advisor in my graduate school told me, like, listen, man, like you're going to get your PhD, you're not going to get a job, and you're going to have to go back to school anyway. So that kind of switched the plan a little bit. And, he didn't even have to tell me that because I saw it. I saw that people were graduating and people who kind of looked like me. And I certainly don't want to come off like I'm some angry white man because I'm not. But people who looked like me were not getting jobs. So it was like, so Eileen had an opportunity because we were married then. And she had an opportunity to go back to my alma mater to work. And I went back and I worked for my coach's brother. And I was coaching a club team at the time too, and we had some reasonable success. And so I started coaching with him, and then I got really interested in it, and I was taking classes to get my master's degree because I already had my master's. I got my master's in history, and I was going to get my master's in education. But then the Michigan State thing opened up, and luckily the first two people that he offered the job to as an assistant turned him down, and he got really desperate. And so I was the third person in line, and when he offered it to me, I took it. I took it. And so I ended up at MSU, and then that was supposed to be like, well, let me go back. Like when I was in college, I used to work camps with my coach, and I met a lot of really good coaches, worked with them, learned a lot about the sport, really learned to appreciate and love. I guess I always kind of loved the sport, but really loved the sport, the science behind the sport, the coaching behind the sport. So I'd always, like when I graduated, before I went to graduate school, I started coaching a club team in Buffalo, New York. And, we had reasonable success. It's not like we were, we weren't bowl school, but we had reasonable success in our area. And, so then I went to Michigan State, and the intention there was to be there for a few years, kind of get some experience and move on. But then one thing led to another, and I was there a long time.
How old were you when you took that coaching position?
27, and I was, so I ended up retiring from Michigan State too. I was 52, like my last day was August 31st. 2022, I got 25 years in, and I was allowed to apply for retirement too. But
Nice.
My first year down here, I was getting really bored, and I started actually working at the Home Depot. And then I got a job. They kind of created a position for me at Tech, so I'm working in the rec department now.
There's so many people I know that want to work at Home Depot because they're good with their employees. So many cops are like, I'm going to fucking retire and go to Home Depot. I'm like,
yeah, well, the thing is, can I tell you one thing about that is you don't get an employee discount. That sucks.
What?
So you don't get that. No, you don't. No, nothing.
Okay, well.
But you know what? I'll tell you what though, Tess. I'll tell you this though. It was really good for me because you get a better appreciation of retail, like when you work. And I was a lifeguard, I worked at my cousin's restaurant. So it was like I had jobs, like different kind of things. I worked at a country club, which was kind of service because you had to deal with the members and stuff. Because, I was like, I'm working with kids that are like half my age, more than half my age. They just have shitty attitudes. Like, there was this guy, and his name was Albert, and apparently he was like the manager, right? I never met him. I mean, I couldn't have
Mhm.
identified this guy in a police lineup. I had no idea who he was, right? So every time I would work with the younger kids, they'd be like, "You better watch out because Albert, if he's around there, he'll get you in trouble." I'm like, "If that fucking guy yells at me, I'm leaving." Like, I don't care. Like, whatever, dude. And he ain't gonna yell at me. I do my job. Just do your job, and he won't be on you. So yeah, that was a good time, man. That was a really good time. So this guy comes up and says, "I want to paint a shed." So
Yeah.
I'm talking to him, and he starts telling me this story about his wife and how he went to Vietnam. And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, I got shot, and then I didn't want to go home because my wife was a shrew, so I just re-upped, and then I got shot again." And I was like, "Holy!" So I tell him, I said, "Hey, man, because my dad had a Purple Heart in World War II. So I look at him like, I bet you got a Purple Heart for that, huh, man?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I've never told anyone that I ever got a Purple Heart. Like, you're the really only person I've ever told that to." Now I'm just like fucking at the Home Depot. I hop the counter and I shake the guy's hand. I'm like, "I can't tell you how honored I am that you told me." And I
Yeah.
was like, so I shake the guy's hand. And I'm like, holy cow. Like, I mean, if he was genuinely talking about this, I went home. I told my wife, I said, I told Eileen, I'm like, this guy just said I'm the only person he's ever told. I'm just working at the paint department. That was a really good day for me because I was like, I'm working at Home Depot and I'm like, what the hell am I doing in my life? I should be doing something more than this. But
But you already did the thing. Just
I
saying.
did quite a bit of things. Yeah.
Yeah, you did quite a bit of things.
Yeah, I can tell you this. This is Big Ten time. For me. Like, this is when it would. The last 2 weeks of February, right? Like,
You became head coach. How old were you? Because I remember finding this out later and being like, "Holy crap, you were way younger than in my head you were."
33.
Damn.
Which I probably shouldn't. I mean, I'm happy that they trusted me to do that, and Eric and Kathleen were instrumental in making sure that the ship was steadied. The crazy thing is when I took the job, obviously.
Yeah.
It didn't pay a lot of money. I mean, you were there, right, when they switched in
Yeah,
October, like, you were on the team?
I was a sophomore, so I'd had 1 year with, Lutz, and then you came in and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah,
you're
I
the
mean,
coach."
so I think, we had such a nice well, I mean, we stayed together for, like, 20 years. I mean, me, Kathleen, and Eric, right?
Yeah.
I'm really happy for the assistant coaches that were at Michigan State and were somewhat hamstrung in terms of where we were facility-wise and everything that have gone on. Like, Eric he was the head coach for USA Diving for the World Championships last summer. He's probably gonna go to the Olympics in 2028. And, one of my old assistants is at Tampa now. They're winning the national championships in Division II. So it's nice to see them move on. But the three of us really kind of, I mean, steadied everything. And they were on board with me and they were willing to let me lead. And that really helped. So it's like, yeah, I was
Yeah.
33 years old, which is not old, man. And I had a zero. I mean, Thomas was born in July and that whole thing happened in October.
Yeah, I remember you having a stroller at the time,
Yeah,
like,
we
on
had that
deck,
for a
yeah.
while. I was so like I said, like when they gave it to me, like I was excited, sure, but not really because I had been
Yeah.
hired by a guy who kind of crashed and burned on the job. Then they hired another guy
Mhm.
who crashed and burned on the job. And really, like, what Jim should have done is he should have just gotten a whole new staff. Like, he should not have. I mean, it just didn't. I mean, well, actually, there's a lot of things that went into it. Like, Jim had. I mean, I would hope that he would admit that he just wasn't 100% behind doing the job. I mean, like, he was not doing well.
I never got a good read on him because my freshman year wasn't probably the best portrayal of me as a person in general that first year. I don't think it is for most people, but yeah, I didn't hate him, but I didn't love him. I wasn't like gonna follow him anywhere as you would want to with a coach, but I didn't hate him.
Your first year, do you remember where your first year Big Tens were? Do you remember where they
No, I could
were?
just see the pool. Maybe it was Minneapolis. No, I don't think that was sophomore year.
It wasn't in your last year was at Indiana, right? No, 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 wait. No, your last year was not in your junior year would have been at IU, right? Because that was when Jones graduated. Yeah, so maybe your freshman year was at Minneapolis, right?
Think so.
No, you know where it was? It was at Purdue. Were Kate, Duncombe, and Sophia
Yep.
were seniors. Yeah, that was at
Yeah.
Purdue.
Okay.
Yeah, because Katie.
How? How do you remember that stuff, man?
Well, I remember a lot of things about Kate Duncombe. That's why. that last year, she really tested my patience, you know? She was ready to move on from swimming and do other things with her life, and my goodness, I hope if
Yeah.
you ever get a chance to interview her, she'll tell you that I would hope that she'd like to redo that year over because she sacrificed an awful lot for a guy who really that didn't end up being Camelot. I mean, she has it now, which is really cool, like,
Yeah.
her life is going great, and but wow, you know, I just kept telling her, like, "You get one chance here." You think that she really
Yeah.
but yeah, but I remember it being at Purdue when she underperformed and she was in tears, and I just remember being at Purdue at that time. But no,
Yeah.
what I was gonna say was you didn't go to that Big Tens at Michigan. Oh my god, the women's Big Tens at Michigan the year before you got there was
Mm.
just Jim really kind of exploded on the team and did everything he possibly could to alienate the kids on the team, and it was just
I
not
forgot. He
good.
used to get really red when he would scream, and it was very weird when he would scream because I don't think I'd ever seen an adult person scream before then. I was like, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that."
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, like, I started when I came out here initially, I didn't have really anything to do, and it's not a really great place to be for swimming, and they have one swim club in town, and they really didn't I didn't get the vibe from them that they really wanted me involved out here, which was fine, that's cool. So I started reffing high school basketball games. My point is that I do high school basketball games and junior high games. I watch these coaches just scream at these kids, and I'm thinking like, "Dude, you're not gonna get them to play any harder or better, like, by
Yeah.
yelling at." And don't get me wrong, like, you saw me lose I mean, I lost some shit at times, like, I
Yeah,
had a temper, but
but it was
it's like
it was, like, motivated temper. There's, like, a I don't know how to say it. It's a difference, you know? Like, Mole would get mad too, but he'd get quiet, and that's when it gets scary.
no, but these guys they're coaching, like, 7th grade and 8th grade girls football teams, and they're, like,
Yeah.
screaming at these girls. I'm like, "You're not helping, dude. They're already frazzled enough. They don't need you screaming at them from the sidelines."
They've already gotta deal with
I mean
puberty. Like, that
I mean, seriously.
yeah.
Girls, females age 12 to basically 23, if you're screaming at them, like, especially if, like, you know, out here, like, out here, the kids are so, it's kind of a traditional thing, and they're really good kids. Like, you're just calm down and talk, you know? Like, they're just screaming kids. It's you know,
Yeah.
if you had seen me at the end, I got older, and I just realized, I mean, we really had a nice system at the end with the kids, and it was more about finding your way, figuring out your way, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, you know, I used to a couple times, it never really worked with the boys because the guys, the egos on the boys are always so you know, you always have to tell girls what they did well, and you always have to tell boys what they did crappy, because if a guy comes out of a race, it's like, it's never his fault, something happened, blah, blah. If a girl comes out of the race, it's totally her fault, even if she did, like, her best time and she's first in the thing.
Yeah.
She'll be like, "That was terrible." It's like, "Terrible? Like, you broke the team record by 4 seconds." But my thing I used to do with girls all the time on the team, the women on the team, is I'd pull them out, especially if they were doing shitty. I'd be like, "Hey, listen, if I went back in a time machine and I found
Mhm.
15-year-old you and I was standing next to them on the pool deck and I said, 'That's you right now. Are you proud of how you've became?'" And, you know, sometimes they'd shake it off, but it was very impactful because, you know, we had good swimmers at Michigan State. It's not like we recruited crappy
Yeah.
kids, but they would go and get distracted, and they were a little tired, and there was some tread off the tires, and they just didn't want to do it anymore. And that worked. It never worked for the boys, but it worked for the girls. Be like,
Hmm.
"What are you doing here? Because don't you think your 12-year-old, 13-year-old, the one that dreamed about being in the position that you're in right now,
Yeah.
would be disappointed with how you're doing this?" You know? So
Yeah. I think it's a hard thing because in those places, you're always surrounded by people in the same position as you to some degree, and you don't realize, like, "Oh, crap, it's a freaking privilege to be standing on this deck, let alone be competitive at it." It's hard, at least on the girl side, to grasp that perspective of being like, "Oh, wow, this is actually, like, pretty cool. I made it this far. Let's see how far we can take it." Because I forget. I tell stories, and they're like, "Oh, holy shit, you did that?" I'm like, "Yeah, but didn't everybody do that?" But, yeah,
no, no,
so
and, you know, that was the other fight, you know, like, the other fight was, it's like, listen, you know, I never really I mean, I understood it. I think there was some empathy by me for it, and I know you have to go below the surface on some of this stuff, but I really never understood the low self-esteem stuff that we had on some of it. When you coach women, and it
mhm,
isn't even just at Michigan State, it's basically across the board, and in particular in sports like swimming, cross country, whatever, for whatever reason, it attracts certain people that maybe just don't like themselves or whatever. But I would be like,
mhm,
"Listen, you're there." You know, at Michigan State, there's 50,000 students and we have 800 athletes. So you're like,
mm,
and half of those aren't even on scholarship, you know, so at least they were, I don't know what it is now. I mean, I don't even know what a scholarship is anymore anyway, but I'd be like, "How can you consider yourself" like, they come into my office sometimes and they would cry. I would never get frustrated to crying, I would get frustrated at the fact it's like, you're not giving yourself a break, like, you're not really giving yourself you're not giving yourself credit for the things that you do every day, you know? And that was
Yeah.
one of the things we really worked on, like, right around 2014, we started coming up with pillars and principles of our program that, was, I guess they call it culture. I don't know if it was culture so much, but just in terms of what expectations were. And we used to talk about like the different things that we would base this stuff on. And
Yeah.
one of them was this Greek word, the Greek term agon, which is the root word of agony. It's like agon is everything is a struggle. Everything is a struggle. Like when your alarm clock goes off, you have a choice to make. You can get up or not get up. That's the struggle. Like, then once you get up, what are you gonna do with your day? Are you gonna go to practice? Well, once you made it to practice, that's another win, right, for you, but once you're at practice, are you gonna train hard or are you just gonna get
Mm.
by? And so
Yeah.
everything in life is a struggle, so we would talk about that all the time. And if you realize that everything in life is a struggle, you have a lot of individual victories. Even if you have a shitty day, there's a lot of individual victories that you got out of that day, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
so we talk about that all the time. And, that was one of the cool things that we used to do, you know?
I have a question that I've never asked actually anybody the story of, even though I was present right after. But you had one of, I think, the hardest things you've ever had to deal with as a coach, which is on April 30th, '01, when, John Munley died. Now, as a cop, I mean, I've had to tell people all the time, hey, somebody is passed, but I don't think that's ever something you have to think about as a coach. How'd you handle that? And did you guys end up having to break the news? Because back then, I mean, social media really wasn't a thing, so I'm guessing people kinda found out through you guys.
Yeah, so I'll tell you this story. We had to get the team together, when they cut the team. So in October of 2020, we had to get the team together, and we couldn't tell them what it was about, but the word got out anyway. Everybody knew what was happening. It was during COVID. They had already cut the team
Mhm.
at Iowa. We didn't give them any heads up. So my sports supervisor, a guy named, Stephen Anthony, who was awesome, like, awesome guy. He comes after the day was over, it was a pretty emotional day, obviously, and everything, and he goes, "Boy, this had to be the worst day you ever had at work." I'm like, "No, I've had one worse. No, I've had one worse." I go, "That
Yeah.
one was worse." So, I'll tell you, me and Rich were did you ask Rich about this? Because Maul was there the whole time.
Mm-mm.
So, Rich and I'll never forget this. Rich was very, very frustrated with our backstroke poles at the IM West. He didn't like them. So we took a trip this day down to Lansing Pipe Fitters because he was trying to find a good solid pipe that he could put in the ground, and then we
Yeah.
could put something through it like a hook and then hook the flags. He didn't like because our backstroke poles were the original ones from 1957. They're all bent,
Ye
whatever. So we went down there and then we stopped and it was an incredible day. Like it was a gorgeous day, right?
Mhm.
So Jim, the head coach, had gone golfing and he turned his phone off because he was gonna go golfing and everything. I mean, it was 80 degrees and the leaves were coming out, like, it was a
Mhm.
gorgeous day,
So pretty.
springtime. People eating outside at the Peanut Barrel, the whole thing. So we get back there and you remember Joel Eddy, I run into Joel and he
Mhm.
goes, "Hey, listen, they just called over here. Somebody collapsed on Harrison Road and they think it's John Munley." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah." So they're like, "You gotta go over to Jennison. The cop is over there." They took a picture because John was out running and he didn't have anything on him. So you're a police officer, you can see where this is going, right? So
Mhm.
they had these old, like, it wasn't even like they had old, like, printed, like, digital pictures, right? But they had them printed out because
Yeah.
no one had like a smartphone, right?
Mhm.
So John had tattoos and they took pictures of the tattoos because that was really the only thing they had because he was intubated, so he had like his face was all oxygen. They had the thing in there. So it was really
Mhm.
hard they showed me the face but when I saw the tattoos, I knew right away. And, the police officer was like, "Okay." So then they say, "Hey, we can't, they're like, we can't get a hold of his parents." I said, "Well, his dad works at Western Michigan University." Now, in those days, we didn't remember when you guys would come in, we'd collect phones. We didn't even have, like, as a department, we didn't even have emergency contact numbers for kids. So, I mean, this was 25, 26 years ago. Well, I guess
Yeah.
25 now.
Mhm.
Uh, so I called the switchboard at Western Michigan and I said, "Hey," I go, "I don't need to be connected. I just need Pat Munley's phone number so I can give it to the police." So the woman's like, "Okay, whatever." So I'm on there and all of a sudden she connects me to him. So I call, I'm like, "Oh, Mr. Munley."
Shit.
I go, "The East Lansing Police Department needs to talk to you." And I gave him the phone number and then he called. So Rich and I, we go down to Sparrow hospital,
Mhm.
and because that's where he was. And so they put us in this little bereavement room, right? Whatever.
Mm.
And they tell us, they're like, look, if the family shows up, don't say anything to them. It's not your responsibility to do this. It's the responsibility of the doctors to do this. So don't say anything. So I'm like, okay. So Rich and I are sitting there and his sister comes in, Liz Piat, right? Like Liz is awesome. Like I knew the family because obviously Tom had swum there from 92 to 96. And then John started right up in 97. And John started the same year at Michigan State, the same year I started, right? So, I had taken a lot of trips with him and I was really tight with the kid. And so anyway, his sister comes in and we're sitting there and there's no doctor. So she's like, hey, they told me John was in the hospital and they wouldn't tell me what room he was in because she went in through the front
Mm.
door, not obviously through the back. And
Yeah.
I looked at her and I started crying. And then she knew something was up.
Mhm.
And Rich was like, I think, went and got the doctor. The doctor came in and we were sitting in the room when they told the sister that he had passed.
Ugh.
So we're there the whole it was very bad. Then we
Mhm.
got the team together and we had to have a meeting and a lot of kids knew, but a lot of kids didn't know because John lived off campus and he lived with his brother. So he didn't live with a lot of kids on the team. So that was brutal. That was the first day of exams in spring semester
Oh, shit.
2000. And then
Yeah.
what I did was I got in my car, went on Center Street, the old house on Center Street the swimmers had. I don't know if you,
Mhm.
yeah. So I went there to make sure that the kids weren't going to do anything fucking stupid that night, which they did
Yeah.
anyway. Which was, and, but no, that was, for good or bad or worse, which I guess is bad and worse, like, that was very impactful for me. Very impactful for me as a coach and very impactful for me as somebody who worked at MSU because that family loved Michigan State. John loved Michigan State. I mean, John was one of the first ones to get a tattoo. He had a block S, but the kids started getting the Spartan helmet. Later on, they got the Spartan, you know,
I didn't know
uh,
that's where that came from. I just thought
yeah,
they kinda
really
always did it.
no, it was John was one of the first. And so, every time there was an opportunity maybe potentially to move on from Michigan State, it was like, there was just this pull that I had. And again, for bad or worse, I don't even know what you'd call it. And, it was just, that was impactful, very, because my daughter was only, I mean, she wouldn't even have been a year old yet. Most of my son was maybe 2+ years. And, I
Yeah.
bring up Trex all the time. John would play with them. And, it was really, really hard. And the family, of course, Mrs. was because we had just gone to the NC2As at A&M, at Texas A&M, and she was there. So we spent, I mean, and his dad they came to all the meets. Tell you a funny story about John, though. You probably heard it because we used to say it at the banquet all the time. John got tattoos, but his dad didn't like the fact that he got tattoos. So he would hike his shorts up, like back then the kids would wear, just briefs at meets. And so he would hike them all the way up so his dad couldn't see the tattoo. I was like, John, what are you doing with your like, like, you covered the whole thing. Yeah, John. He was a cat, man.
What was it anyways? Was it just a heart issue? I remember reading about it in one of those swimmer magazines, and they don't do that stuff anymore.
There was a artery that fed oxygenated blood to one of his natural pacemakers, and the wall was thickened and there was a thickening of the wall. And then it just,
Mm.
once he got that, there was an arrhythmia and they just couldn't get him back. They worked on, I mean, like, I know so it's at the SAE house on Harrison Road right there. And he collapsed. And then there were girls from the sorority, because that's another place I went to that night. I stopped by the sorority because the girls were out on the porch and they were, I mean, this
Oh,
kid
yeah.
ended up dying. And they gave him CPR. Like, they gave him CPR
Oh,
within seconds because he went
wow.
right down like a tree. And so, like, it was tough, man. It was a horrible, oh my God, Tess, that funeral. So the whole U of M team came to it. It was in
Damn.
Portage, like over by Kalamazoo there. Of course, when a young person dies, which I'm sure you know as a cop, the
Mhm.
place is packed, man.
Mhm.
Like 80-year-olds have nobody there. And like, you know, the less age you get, they're going out the back door, right? And
Mhm.
it was a Catholic mass, and you took the host, and I was walking back, and I saw all these kids from the U of M team and all the kids from our team, and that was very difficult. Probably that one was the most emotional. I had to leave, and I went on the back, and I was sobbing, like sobbing.
Mm.
And, because it was just then his sister, his younger sister who he was really tight with, she was in a state at the thing, and it wasn't good. It's been so, and then when they dropped the program, I think that was the part that frustrated me the most was because I'm like, this kid died here and now you're killing him again. Like they had this scholarship. They donated all
Yeah.
this money. You gave them guarantees on stuff. And then, they informed some of these people who donated money to Michigan State who had endowments in there. Because at the time, I think our men's team had 8. like 8 endowed, it wasn't fully endowed, but 8
Yeah.
scholarships that were endowed, and they sent emails to him like, "Well, where do you wanna move this money to?" Like, within, like, a day, 2 days.
That was quick.
So, yeah, that was,
How did you
hard.
go from that summer? So it was April. So when was the next big meet you guys had? Or I'm just curious how they actually were able to recover from that.
It was tough. You know, you've had Ildiko on this, and I listened to her podcast, and she was really, they were boyfriend, girlfriend, but John, it was like a, I mean, it was really a weird relationship because she had difficult, she had a everybody had a difficult time. You know,
Yeah.
so I was an assistant coach, and, Christy Shepshunas was the head coach, or was the other assistant. We shared an office together, and she had a really hard time, like a tough time with it. And I mean, we all did. I mean, it's not like I was like, "Oh, good." I mean, like,
Yeah, we're fine.
next day I'm all set, but I had a few more distractions in my life. You know, I had young kids, and I mean, it wasn't like, you know, you gotta keep moving and you gotta keep living, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, but she didn't have any. Christy didn't. And
Mm.
so I remember, she had a rough go, and Ildiko had a pretty rough go, and we tried to keep the thing together in the summertime, but it wasn't easy, man. It was really hard. Cause I mean, when that happens, naturally you question things like, "What am I doing here?" But, you know, the kids
Yeah.
that were in his class were all good kids. You know, I still stay in touch with a lot of them, and, you know, it was hard. It was really hard. Some communities really small, so we
Mm.
kept getting one message after another. So it was, and the people didn't mean to. They were trying to do good, but
Mhm.
it never went away. You know, we'd get emails from kids from Ohio State. This was a week, 2 weeks after the incident, 3 weeks after the incident. So it just never ever went away. And I'll tell you another thing was really hard. You know what was really tough is when we came back in the fall
Mhm.
and the campus got back, when people moved back on campus, and I was driving in for the team meeting, and I saw all these young kids walking around. That was another one. I mean, I started tearing up because I just, you know, you just never, it
Mhm.
took years really before you were like, "Oh my god," because then you start dealing with other kids, and
Yeah.
you just get a new generation of kids. Because I mean, the one nice thing about being a college coach is that you end up, they all leave anyway, right? So it's not like they're going to be hanging around. So they
Mhm.
leave anyway. So I mean, yeah, that was not,
How
yeah.
was that when, granted, because when I got there, I didn't know who he was. Well, I didn't know him personally, but you guys carried on his memory really freaking well because we all were very well aware of who he was and what happened in his family and everything. But was it weird when that last class left out that did know him? Was that weird for you? Because that next
No,
year going in and be
no,
like,
you know
oh,
what, it wasn't because you know, they were seniors, the kids who were freshmen, they never really had much, you know how it worked at Michigan State, like, the kids would be in wonders for years 1 and 2, and then they move off campus, and a lot of the kids would pal around really in groups of 2. I mean, it's
hmm
very rare for, like, all of a sudden, like, a freshman to be, like, palling around with a senior, especially at Michigan
yeah,
State because there's so much
it's
distance.
suspicious, is what it is.
Yeah, right. Well, unless it's some loser dude who's trying to hit on one of the new
Yeah.
girls on the team. But yeah, it was, no, that never, we had that picture up. I don't know if you remember, but we had that mural on the wall. When they took the platforms down, there was like a hole in the wall where the spiral staircase used to be up to the 7-meter platform. When they took those down, they put these pictures up, and one of them was John. So we'd see him up there all the time. He'd always
That's
be.
cool. Is it still up over there? Even or
No, they took all,
no?
they renovated the whole thing now.
Oh, damn.
You know, they spent all that money in I wanna say 2017 maybe, or they put the new scoreboard up. They did a lot of stuff, and, now they're tearing the building down. So, I mean, I don't know what they're gonna do with all the stuff in there. They're tearing
No,
the
I didn't
building
know
down.
that.
Yeah.
Holy crap. That's so sad. I didn't had no idea. Damn.
They built a new one. I mean, there's a new pool going up. It's really nice too, 50 meters, 8 lanes. Just huge,
Wow.
$250 million. Yeah. And they dropped the team because there wasn't a pathway to facility. Now they have a brand new facility.
Okay. God. Well, not to get ahead of myself and talk about that, but to kind of take a softer turn. Since you were in college coach and there was lots of shenanigans that go on with kids in college, because it just is, that first bit of freedom and crap. Were you guys well aware of most of the shenanigans and you just kind of played like you didn't most of the time, is what I assumed?
Oh, yeah. The alcohol thing, I think we had. Do you know what? The one that threw me was the drug thing. Like, we had kids who were doing drugs. Then I found out after the fact. A lot, mostly, I mean, it's all that's legal now in Michigan anyway, but weed, they were
Yeah.
blowing a lot of weed. You know, at the end, I used to ask the kids, could you just do it outside of the season? So you're not, if in case we get a spot drug test, like, could you not? Of course, you know, you swam with her, right? Like, she
That's the one I was
Yeah.
thinking of. There wasn't enough ventilation in that freaking pool when I was there, and so you're like, "God
We would get false
dang."
positives all the time because the kids would be drinking so much water, and then they had to wa yeah. So, I
Yeah,
guess I
ugh.
shouldn't name names. This is wrong to do on a podcast in
I'll
case.
take them out, it's fine.
Yeah, but they so that one was but we had a pretty good I will tell you that at the end of my career, that was the one thing that was probably the most frustrating, right?
So
We had a guy on a team when I first got there, and I was an assistant coach, and this before Jim was there, so it was Rich Bader was a head coach. And he was a good swimmer. I mean, he was a really good swimmer. He was a good athlete too, super good athlete. And he came in the office one time and he was in tears, like he was crying because he just didn't want to do the 200 fly anymore. It was just
mhm.
too much for him, you know? And,
I feel like that's a valid reason to cry. I would cry
yeah,
about
but
the
then I
2
found
flight.
out later on he's doing like triathlons, like Ironmans. I'm like, that's a lot harder. Like that's you were in the office crying and now you're doing triathlon. Same thing with Ian Clutton. I mean, his senior year, he's like, I don't think I can do the 200 IM. I want to go the 50 free, which was a joke. And now he's like Jack
I
LaLanne. He's like
know.
Mr. Fitness. I mean, like,
His kids do more mileage than I do in the
I
week.
know, holy crap. Like, man, if you would trained like this, you would have made the Olympic team in 2004.
Good.
Like, so, I
Yeah,
mean, we knew what was I mean, the thing is it's never about the swimming. It's about what you're doing. It's never about practice. It's like, what are you doing to set yourself up to be successful tomorrow? Or when we leave
yeah,
on Saturday after Saturday practice, what are you doing? Because I mean, the old school mentality of swim coaches is, well, I'm just going to pound the shit out of these kids. So when they fuck around
mhm,
all weekend, we don't lose the whole week, which
yeah,
is not a good way to train. That's a horrible way to do it, you know?
yeah. I think that's how I was brought up during age group, not I don't know if it was college, but definitely age group.
Yeah, well, that's what the mentality was for us on Saturday mornings. We'd be like, we'd run those long practices and it'd just be like, what are we really getting accomplished here? I mean, people are a lot smarter than they used to be. I think part of it is kids just are smarter about what they're doing when they leave. Swimmers still have a reputation, I'm sure, but it's tough, because I haven't coached now. I mean, my last coaching was 5 years ago, almost to the day. I have not
Yeah,
coached. I've given some people
it's
some
crazy.
lessons and training and stuff, but I haven't really coached.
In a
But
while.
people are smarter. That's why people are swimming faster. They're a lot the
Mhm.
coaches are smarter, the kids are smarter.
Well, the stuff they have now with this popularity, I don't know if it's gotten popular. I feel like swimming's gotten way more popular, but they take it more as a career instead of a sport, which I think in my head I was like, "Oh, it's a sport, it's a thing I do." I wasn't thinking about it, what I needed to eat, how I needed to sleep, all that other stuff, and I feel like now it's all encompassing or they do a little bit better job.
When you need to eat, like post practice. I mean, kids they were doing pre-workout and post-workout stuff, and there was some stuff like the nutritional stuff, at least what the department supplied was good, although it costs a lot of
Mhm.
money. And I'm not really 100% sure that the department should be supplying that. It's more about individuals should be taking care of themselves. But even if you eat a banana or you drink chocolate milk within 15 minutes of done practice, it helps with recovery. There's a lot of things that help that kids just weren't doing.
Yeah, no. It was just like, "Let me
So,
go get that large pizza and eat the whole thing."
yeah, sure, you throw booze in there, which makes it even worse.
How did you measure your success in your athletes? Not just with times, like with pretty much anything, be it their goals, your goals, and then in comparison, how do you measure your success with them once they get done with swimming? I know I have with maybe cops that have trained or people that have coached. You have some investment in them because you've taught them for part of their life. So how do you see success after coaching as well?
So I will tell you this. I think what we did, and I think Kathleen gets a lot of credit for this too, is that we just talked about meeting your ultimate potential, meet your ultimate potential. And I think we sold Michigan State at the fact that, like you didn't have to sacrifice. Like if you wanted to study abroad, we had it
Hmm.
in our department that you could do that in the summertime. Or if you wanted to do an internship, like you remember Megan Reppinen, did you swim with her?
She was a year younger than me, I think, year after.
Lawyer and repping in, like,
Yeah.
Megan sat first chair that first year. Now her athletic performance, it suffered because of it, because she was doing a lot of things, and her last year, she cut a lot of that stuff out and swam a lot better, but so we talked about meeting ultimate potential, which was the most important thing, and I mean, in a sport like swimming or track, you can
Hmm.
certainly measure that because you're either getting better or you're not,
Hmm.
and I think that's also one of the things that's difficult because it's hard because 'cause you're sitting on a time sometimes well, I don't have to tell you this, but you're sitting on a time for years.
Hmm.
You're trying to go faster and you feel like you're a failure because 'cause you're not going faster, and you went faster your entire career until you got to be 16, 17, whatever. You were always moving forward, and so that's difficult to
Yeah.
do, but on the flip side, I mean, obviously graduating for swimmers, it's not difficult to graduate, but what are you graduating with? How are you pulling that off? What are you doing? We had kids doing internships at the end, but they were also training. Like we had one boy who did an internship in Baton Rouge, but he trained with the LSU team. So we talked about meeting that, which is one of the things that frustrates me sometimes when they talk about what a Olympic sport costs, because it's like, look, man, Olympic sports cost things, they do, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
generate revenue. I understand that. But from a talent acquisition standpoint, like the more things you have to offer as an institution, better kids you're going to get in there, right? Like we had kids who
Mm-hmm.
came, who would never have gone to Michigan State. Never, never. Except for the fact that they had the opportunity to swim and they had the opportunity to swim in the Big Ten. And then Michigan State
Yeah.
used these kids, promoted Michigan State on the backs of these kids. And the whole reason they came there was because of this. I mean, David Zoltowski, you don't know him, but he graduated. He was a Churchill Scholar. He's doing postdoc work at Stanford right now. Got his PhD at Princeton. I mean, he never would have come to Michigan State without this. Like, there's no way. And they
Yeah.
put him. I mean, when they did their capital campaign in 2015, he spoke at it. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
David was never going to be a Big Ten champion, and he was never going to help a team get to a Big Ten championship, but he was a valuable member of the Michigan State community. And I mean, for us, that's how we would have to measure success. I mean, we were never going to chase
Mm-hmm.
banners. We were never going to beat Michigan, and we were never going to beat Indiana, not under the setup that we had. No way. But you put people in charge of athletic departments that have never been in athletics before, and then they start making decisions, like far-ranging decisions, and it's like, you don't understand what's going on here, man, And for me, I'll tell you, for me, that's one of the things that's tough, because college athletics in particular at the highest level has a real decision. Are you sports entertainment, or are you part of the educational process? Are you sports entertainment? Because sports entertainment is not educational. It's basically you win or get out. I mean,
Yeah.
you live in SEC country. You know exactly what I'm talking about with football down there, man. Like
Yeah.
win or get out. They spend so much money at Auburn. They say we don't have enough money for the Olympic sports. Meanwhile, you're spending like hundreds of millions of dollars to get people to leave. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so for us, we just were like, we're gonna develop a kid, and when they leave here, that's it. And that's one of the reasons why, I mean, kids, I stay in touch with almost all the kids, almost all of them. I mean, not everybody had a great experience. I mean,
Yeah.
but not everybody liked me, I'm
Mm.
sure. But, we never lost kids, and we worked with them the best we could through the years and everything. But yeah,
Look at
that's
it.
how we measure it.
You were a hard read for me at first, but also I didn't see you at bunch because you were a stroke group. Which did you like teaching that one? Or was that the one that you got, or coaching? Was that the one that you got to coach, or one that you kind of chose to?
I think it was more, when Jim started. So yeah, when Jim started, we had two really good kids on the team. I mean, two NC2A qualifying kids on the team. And I remember telling, because we didn't have groups when I first started there. Richard,
Mm.
he wrote all the workouts, and then we kind of implemented, but everybody kind of stayed. Richard was he was more of, not that he was a control freak, but he wanted to be more in control of the whole group. Whereas Jim had more of a, everybody gets their group thing. I think the issue with Jim was he never really developed relationships with the whole team. Like for me, I kept coaching the stroke group like afterward, but I had relationships with everybody. Like I tried to
Mhm.
make sure that I had relationship without micromanaging my assistants, because I really wanted them to be able to do their stuff, right? But when Jim started, I said, you have to coach the two best. You're the head coach. You got to coach the two best kids on the team. So we created this group. Like Kate was in it, Duncombe and John was in it. So it was like a mid-distance. So she was training mid-distance, but she wasn't really training mid-distance because she probably should have, because she was talented enough to be able to do those events, but whatever. But yeah, I coached the strokers, and I coached the stroke group all the way up until I think the last 2 years I was coaching, because I started coaching the distance kids, because it was easier for me to,
Really? Did not
yeah,
know
it
that.
was easier for me to do that because they work harder. It's not that you don't have to get after them, but I could do a lot of administrative stuff with them, because I mean, we hired an assistant who I didn't really trust to run that group. And so I took them, and it was fun for me. I like coaching those kids, and I learned a lot too, that I implement in my own
Oh.
stuff. There's some things in my own personal work, and
Mhm.
like those 3-4 years that I coached the distance kids, and I took a lot of things from other people, and I like to say we did really well, but we really did. No, that's not true. We had a really good class too. We had to tell them that we didn't have a team anymore, because that's another thing. All those kids committed.
I feel bad for them. That had to have been crushing to expect to finish up your career there and then to kinda, yeah, get told otherwise. Was there kind of the feeling of impending doom, or was it just all of a sudden kind of the guillotine dropped?
No, it was pretty sudden. I mean, I called, a woman named Kathy Fish who swam at Michigan State in the '70s. She's actually on the she's on the board at USA Swimming, and she had built a pool in Dayton in the Southwest or Southwest Ohio area. And I called her about fundraising and everything. And this was the night before they did it, like the night before they did it. And don't forget, it was in the middle of COVID. And like there was a lot of, we had kids who had opted out of coming. Like they stayed at home that semester because Michigan State there was no leadership whatsoever from the president's office about how we were going to go about the semester.
Mhm.
And they changed 3 times through the month of August in terms of how this thing was going to go.
It was also not too long after, what's that doctor's name? Oh my god.
Nasser, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm guessing they were reeling on that too, and
Yes and no. It was really really crappy leadership, in particular in the athletic department, just terrible leadership, like just really bad leadership through the whole pandemic. And I think it was hard because everybody talked about pivoting and all the rest of that stuff. It's like, but it
Mhm.
wasn't even we weren't even pivoting. We were just no one had any idea what we were doing, and no one had any clue. And so, they had just dropped Iowa. When they dropped the team at Iowa, I called like John Munley brother, like Tom, like a lot of the people that took over the battle thing. I was in conversations with them before the fact because I didn't think that Michigan State would have the courage to do it because I knew the inner workings of the department, and particularly on the women's side. I knew the deficiencies that they had in terms of meeting Title IX requirements, and I knew how shitty they were. Now, the AD had no idea. He didn't know what was going on. But because in the middle of him telling me that they were going to drop the team, I was like, you can't drop the women here. Like, you're going to get sued and you're going to
Mhm.
lose. Like, you're going to lose the thing. And they will lose, but they didn't win the injunction. That was the difference, is that they had the ability to drop the team because the judge didn't give them the injunction, but they're going to lose the suit. Like, eventually they'll lose, or maybe they have
Mhm.
already settled. They can't drop any teams up there because the swim team, and I think the settlement was you can't drop any more teams because I think they'd like to drop some more now. They can't
Yeah.
afford them. And so, they can, there's ways to afford them,
Mhm.
but they're, I give you a great example. They got $450 million in a donation. They got like $400 million or whatever, like 6 or 7 months ago, 4 months ago, whatever. And I was told they didn't have any resources. It's like, maybe you should do your job. Like, if you thought about doing your job. I mean, like, I live in East Lansing, lives in East Lansing. The guy who donated the money is in East Lansing. How do you miss this guy? Like, what are you doing?
Jesus.
You know? But the president, he was terrible. The AD, Bill Beekman at the time, just was, he's a nice guy. I'm sure he's a good dude, but he just was not an athletic director. You just cannot put a guy in
No.
charge. Like, you can't put me in charge of a pharmaceutical company,
Mhm.
with a budget of $140 million and be like, okay, you seem to be able to write things on a piece of paper. Just go ahead and lead. Like, you got to have some kind of,
No, you can't teach them the intangibles of sport and the importance of it because I can't verbalize everything that's important about it. You just kinda have to know, especially if you're making those kinda decisions. That's just sad.
that was tough. Of course, we talked about John, the monthly thing, but
Yeah.
that was a difficult because they told us in October, and then they were like, "Well, you can have a season if you want one." And I'm like, "Well, what the hell's that supposed to mean?"
Yeah, how are you gonna
And then we
motivate the
went
kids?
then we went to the Big Tens, and then I'll never forget this, man. So we had a three dual meets scheduled, and I told them, I'm like, "We cannot facilitate a home meet because we don't have the space." For a COVID, they had all these spacing requirements and stuff, and we couldn't do it at the IM West. There's just no way we could have pulled this off.
Yeah.
We went to, Michigan. We were supposed to go to Purdue, but we had to cancel that one because we had kids that threw a party because somebody's birthday. They go to this party unmasked, so we couldn't do that. And then we went out to
What?
Penn State. We went out to Penn State in February, and we came home in snow in a bus because,
Mm.
of course, the people at the league office, they're so out of it. They're like, "Oh, yeah, they'll just go to Penn State like the basketball team does. Like, we don't fly places, dude." Like,
Mm-mm.
so anyway, they said, "Well, you can have a Big Tens if you want one." And just managing that was really just really hard. That big t those I was so happy when it was just really hard. It was not easy
Yeah.
for me, and we got no support, none. There was nobody that was,
Mhm.
first of all, like, most of the people in the department were not behind the decision to drop the teams. And then it was COVID, so they technically couldn't come over anyway. We had our trainer, Leanna Hedden, who was awesome. She was awesome. And then that was basically it from an administrative end. It was me,
Man.
Kathleen, Eric, and Quentin Bishop, who's at the University of Tampa right now, kind of running things, and we couldn't train it. We were using all 3 pools on campus to allow for space. We we just couldn't we had no ability, you know what I mean? Like, we had no
Yeah.
support. We had more support in Ann Arbor than we did in East Lansing. We had more support in State College when we went to Penn State than we did in East Lansing. We had more support at Big Tens. Our administrators didn't come, and the president was a ghost. Like, they made these decisions on and, I'll tell you one thing, Tess, the thing that
Mhm.
bothered me the most, like, I get the decision. Like, if they had dropped 5 sports and said, "We can't afford them," I'd be like, "Okay, I get it." But you
Yeah.
drop one, I mean, the one that basically uses the least amount of resources and costs the least, but the reaction after the fact of people that were lining up to try to help, and they dug their heels in, and to me, that was the part that was just mind-blowing to me. Like, they just didn't it was like, "No, we're gonna show these people," and they dug their heels in, and people like the general counsel of the university, like, after the fact, you find out, like, this guy's like, "Fuck these people," and blah, blah. I
Mhm.
mean, we're all supposed to be on the same team, and I give credit
Yeah.
I give a lot of credit to the kids because I think it's hard, but for me, like, there were some things that happened. I mean, those things happened. I mean, I watched the game last night. I root for Tom Izzo and I root for the team. And the whole thing that happened with football to me was a total joke. I mean, and
Mhm.
I told people, I don't care whether Michigan State wins or loses. I could give two shits about that now. I don't care. But that was the part that was disappointing because there were people that were willing to step up. They were willing to help, and they were
Yeah.
like, no. Then they told them. I remember that one. They're like, well, you need to raise $45 million to get some. Like $45 million. I've been a head coach for 20 seasons. I haven't spent 40. I mean, like, I spent in 20 years, I haven't spent $45 million. I mean, come on, man. Like, why don't you just do the Dr. Evil? Like, you got to give us 100 million, billion, $1 million.
Did it kinda open your eyes that you never had support, or do you think that they were being cowardice in their decision? So, like, afterwards, they didn't wanna show their faces and stuff, or do you think you just never had that support to begin with? They just kinda went with it?
I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think we had support, but not support. Like, nobody was out there being like, hey, you got to we're going to give you the resources to win the Big Ten or whatever. That was
Mhm.
never in question. And I always tell people all the time, like, and this goes all the way back to when I was named head coach because I knew what I was getting into. I knew it. I had gone to let's see, 98, 99, 2000, 1, 2, 3. So 6, 12 Big Tens, right? Men and
Mhm.
women. I had gone to 12 Big Tens and I had
Man.
experienced what the Big Ten meet was like. And I know where Michigan State's place was in that thing. And I knew exactly what the limitations were coming in. But nobody held a gun to my head. Like I could have said, like, fuck it, I don't want the job. I'm going
Mhm.
somewhere else. But I didn't. So, like, for me to cry about it 10 years later is pretty disingenuous, right? Like, I mean, I knew what I was getting into. I knew
Mhm.
they were never going to build a pool there because the president didn't care about physical fitness. In a lot of ways, she didn't care about the student. She didn't care about the student experience when it comes to recreation, all the rest of it. They're catching up little by little there, but
Yeah.
they've missed the boat on that. Why would I complain then? I knew it's not like I walked off the street. I was there for 6 years and I knew what I was getting into.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But they were very supportive in the fact that they said, "Hey, this is what we want you to do. This is how we want you to do it. We'll promote your people." I mean, we were very excited again with David when he was potentially going to be a Rhodes Scholar. I mean, we were really excited. Like the president's office would call us. We helped with fundraising. We did a lot of things. I mean, I was very active on campus, and I think we had a great
Yeah.
reputation on campus across all the colleges. And so I felt supported like then,
Mhm.
but to sit there for me to tell like, "Oh, yeah, man, we got all the support we needed in order to win the big" no, no. And, that's the
Mhm.
other thing, like, Tess, like, you break it down now, the Big Ten is an 18-team league. I mean, here's the thing.
Mhm.
I know Indiana, like, they have a lot of money behind them, and they were this miracle thing, but there are programs that are never gonna win a Big Ten championship in certain sports, and so what do? Just cut them? I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna win. Like, you're never gonna win. Like, gymnastics is a team that has really done a lot because I think the university was so guilty about what happened that they poured
Mhm.
a lot of money into women's gymnastics, but they're never gonna beat UCLA, and they're never gonna beat UCLA. It's not gonna happen. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, to sit there and be like, "Hey, we have this program in order to win a title," well, then 17 of most of them aren't gonna do it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so what do? Cut them? You know, I yeah.
To give a compliment to the program that you guys ran, not above that, but had the honor to be a member of a ton of different teams, not just athletic teams, just in life in general, and some what I would call elite teams of people just because of how good they were at what they did. And I've never seen a followership in a team like your guys' team had Michigan State swimming because everybody wanted to succeed for themselves, but also for the coaches, and I think that's a rare thing. I think that was pretty rare and pretty successful on your guys' part. I wish that we had been good enough to, like, bring home something, like, we as a whole bring home something to make your guys' efforts more valid, I guess, of, "Hey, here's this award," so we could show the directors or whatnot, "Here it is," but unfortunately, none of us are that super good, but the investment that you guys put in all of us, it made us have that followership just for the team itself, and that, you can't put a freaking price on that stuff, so thank you for that because that carried on into this career, into the other stuff that I've been able to do just because of the examples and the coaching that you guys had then. And, I had it in age group too, but it was totally different. You wasn't spending that much time with everybody, and you guys are basically pseudo-parents in college because none of us have any parents there, so thank you for that. I just wanted to put that out there really fast because even though you guys didn't have support, we felt pretty supported by you guys.
No, yeah. And I appreciate that, and you're very welcome, but that was part of the job. And the thing at that and again, like, you go back to the fact that it's disconnected because they dropped the program, but
Mhm.
even more than the investment that we put in you as coaches was the investment that was put into when you stepped into Michigan State swimming, there was, on the women's side, you lived it, the 50-year reunion we had, there's 50 years behind you, and
Mhm.
on the men's side, there was 100 years behind it, and there were coaches that there was a tradition there that, for example, you swam outdoors, whether you liked it or not. If it was
Mhm.
snowing, you went out there, and you weren't the
Mhm.
only ones to do it. It was something that had happened at Michigan State for years and years before you got there, and then happened years after you left. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it was that to me is the shame of it because it was just to kill that off, and you did kill it. I tell people all the time, look, I don't wanna be melodramatic about it, but it was really like a death in the family. You had to come to grips with that, and you process it in such a way, and that's why I give a lot of credit. So my last year there, I was involved with the Varsity S Club. So
Mhm.
I did get to see some of the swimmers. They came back to football games, and they would come up to the club in the stadium, and I was running it. The interesting thing, like, when they were okay, so I had a year left, I could retire, and I just said, "Just
Mhm.
give me a year, I'll do whatever you want me to do, whatever." I was gonna be the assistant director of the Varsity S Club, and then the director just quit. So I became, like, the interim director, and full disclosure, like, I was motivated out of spite because I'm like, "I'm gonna do this job so well that the person who succeeds me is gonna do it so shitty, like, I'm gonna create a standard that's so high, so fuck Michigan State because I'm gonna do this." And, actually, what happened was this woman who took over for me, Kate Sauter, she's really cool, and I've helped her, like, a ton. Like, my initial plan my evil plan was ruined, I figured they'd hire some chuckle-headed guy who, like some football dude from the '70s who would take over,
Yeah.
and would be a moron, and he would suck at it, and we'd have it all together, whatever,
Yeah.
but, the hardest part, I think, is like I said, I think I give you guys a lot of credit because for me processing it, it was very difficult. It was like, it was losing and it wasn't losing a job. You can get jobs, like jobs, and that job didn't pay that much either. It wasn't like I was like, "What am I gonna do now? I just lost my $1,000,000 a year." Like, they but it was more about I felt really badly for Jack Seibold that no one was ever gonna get that golden spike again, and I felt bad about
Mhm.
the traditions that we had, like the Munley Scholarship. I felt badly about
Mhm.
Jason Vadney because we had a award in his name. I felt bad for Wally Dobler because we had an award in his name.
Mhm.
Jason and Carly used to come up all the time. And so you come up there, but it's an empty feeling, like you can come to
Yeah.
campus and you can go to a football game and you can cheer for them, but it's not, it's
Mhm.
like losing a family member. Like like
Yeah.
when you go home from, you can still have Thanksgiving,
Mhm.
but it just isn't the same. And so like you have to process that. And for me, the hardest part was I got to see it from the inside. Like I got to see the whole thing happen from the inside, which was bullshit, absolute bullshit.
Mhm.
Like March Madness came around and everybody
Yeah.
on your timeline's like, go green. And at the time, I had to say go green, but that's why I'll tell you, Tess, coming down here for me was amazing because getting out of East Lansing and just getting away from
Yeah.
all that stuff. Like I like Tech and I hope Tech wins, but I don't really give a shit there either. Like I don't care. I don't work in athletics anymore, so I don't really care.
So, side story, I wear Michigan State stuff just because nobody around here wears it, so I wear it, and, there's a guy in Target that I ran into, and he puts the bread on the aisle or whatever. Casual conversations with people, right? And he says something about Michigan State football. Of course, I lie 'cause I never watch football. I don't know these people. So I lie because it's easier to lie. Be like, yeah, that guy, blah, 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 whatever. No idea what he's talking about. Move on. Dude, I've had to have fake conversations with this dude for 8 years because he always puts bread on the damn shelf right when I'm going to Target. So I still have to have these damn fake football conversations.
You know, you figure after 8 years, the guy would have been promoted off bread and maybe something like granola or something, man. I mean, like, he's doing something wrong with his job.
He doesn't even work at Target. He works at the freaking bread truck. It's just
Oh,
my
okay, okay,
timing.
alright, okay, yeah, alright, fair enough. I mean, fair enough,
That's
alright, that should yeah, well, they really got embarrassed. I mean, Jesus Christ, they gave that guy $100,000,000 and humiliates a university, and then they try to sue him to get it back, like, what are you
what?
doing, man? Like, what are you doing, man? I was there for that. I was actually there for that one.
Yeah.
I'll tell you 2 stories in my last year at Michigan State, which were, to me, that floored
Mhm.
me. The one was, Michigan State beats Michigan in
Mhm.
2021, and the whole
Yeah.
campus is on a sugar high, and the next thing you know is they hand the coach a 10-year, $100,000,000 contract, and I start thinking to myself, I'm like, 10 years? I go, 10 years? Like, 10 years he's signed up for, 10 years, and then, of course, he
Jesus.
implodes, and he's doing all this other stuff, and then the other one was January of 2022, I get this
Mhm.
internal email that, Caesars Sportsbook is now an official sponsor of Michigan State athletics, and I was like, "What?" I
What?
thought it was an April Fool's joke. I'm like, "We're gonna have a gambling it's gonna be." I mean, these kids are what in the
What?
fuck are you doing? That was 2 years they had it, and then
Jesus.
just no leadership, just no leadership, man. Like, yeah.
Are they all still there, or have some of them moved on?
Strangely enough, is that they had a really good team. But the people at the top weren't using them. I mean, like, they had people who were very talented that would just basically punch the clock every day because, that was it, and then there were other people who were not very talented who were in the decision-making arena.
Yeah.
They had a good team of people there. I mean, a lot of them have left, they've kinda gone, and some of them are still there. I don't really talk to anybody back there. I talked to the woman, like I said, to Kate, who's in charge of the varsity S, 'cause I'm really impressed with what she's doing there, and I did that for a year or
Oh.
so. It was like, it's just cool for me to follow it, but yeah, yeah.
So then going back with everything that's happened and stuff, what was there anything that you tell yourself to do anything different or any advice or anything?
Well, I mean, the biggest piece of advice that I've given to me is, and it's
Mhm.
hard 'cause I'm 55 years old, so I'm at a much different point in my life, but my biggest thing is I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'll tell you how I say this. So
Yeah.
I started working at tech, and my primary responsibility is I kinda help to oversee the club sports here. So there's 39 club sports here, right? And I report to this dude named Brett Jackson. He's awesome. I mean, I love working with this guy. He's amazing. And then I have two other guys who I work with, Jordan German and Jack Scrimger, they're in their well, Jordan's 30, but they're in their 20s. So they're young guys trying to build careers and stuff like this. So I'm very careful in terms of how I phrase some of this stuff. But
Mhm.
I'm here. Like, for me, it's just a job. And I realize that it's just a job. You know what I mean? Like, and I think you understood, like, you were there in the inception of what we did as a program, and I wanted to be all in, like, both feet in a
Mhm.
circle, all in, get the kids over to my house at Christmas time to do a meal with the kids. I wanted to be
Mhm.
all in, one giant family, like, no bullshit. Like, we were gonna be a family. My
Mhm.
kids, my actual children were gonna come to practice.
Mhm.
All the kids on the team were gonna know who they were. My wife was gonna be involved in the whole thing. So now it's like, fuck that. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, if I get a free ticket, I'll go to the game. If I don't, I'll watch it on TV. I don't like they're trying to build like a satellite rec center here because we've grown as an institution. Texas Tech has grown quite a
Mhm.
bit. And I was in a meeting once and they're like, looks like we're not going to have it. And all these people were like super disappointed. I'm like, man, what the fuck? Some asshole somewhere's making a decision. It happens all the time. I'm still getting paid. I don't care, you know? So I go to
Yeah.
work and I do my job really well, but I don't emotionally, I'm not attached to things and I will never, in my deal, I'll never be attached again emotionally. Like I mean, it's not worth it, right? Like, cause you're one administrative decision away to get the rug pulled out you. And it's not, again, it was never about me. It was just seeing the reaction of people who had put so much into the program, people who I knew very well over 25 years,
Yeah.
20 plus years, whatever, who I knew that this meant everything to them. They donated a lot of money to it. They supported the group. And so
Mhm.
for me, it's like if you can make that decision and, and just walk away and be like, "Ah, what are you gonna do?" Like, I can do the
Yeah.
same thing, like, fuck it. But it's not good advice for somebody in their 20s because you have to care. Like, if you're gonna move up, you gotta invest yourself, and I'm proud of my son because my oldest is actually all 3 of my kids are doing really well now, and I can't tell them, like, "Go tell your boss to." I mean, I would never do that, but my point is it's like,
Yeah.
prioritize. It's easy for me to say because 'cause I've already done it. So I
Mhm.
don't necessarily give that as advice, but for me personally, I'll never be all in again. And that's a shame because I mean, that's
Yeah.
like the person I thought I was, but now, like I said, I mean, I go to meetings and I'm like, "Nah, what are you gonna do?" I mean,
I can't even imagine you being in a meeting saying that because I only know you as being all in, so that would be a whole other side of G I hadn't seen before. Is it nice? Do you enjoy it? Or is it kinda yearning for that group again ever? Are you just good? You're like, "No, I'm good. I'm detached enough."
it's a balance because it's hard because I mean, when you're working with sport clubs, nobody really cares how they do. I mean, the kids in the club do, and you want them to win,
Mhm.
but like
Yeah.
the point is participation and have fun, which is really important. But I'll go to some of the club events, and I'll watch our team, and you just get yourself kind of in there, and then I'm like, I'm going home. I mean, I'm just if the
I'm done.
if the competitiveness comes out or, I mean, it is very difficult because you're wired to do that. And, that was what made my experience in college so great was, we were a family. Now we were only a men's team at Bonaventure, but we were a
Mhm.
family. I mean, I have a group text of my teammates of almost 40 years now. We text each other at least
Damn.
once a day. We're texting all the time. And I really like that's really what I wanted was
Yeah.
that and it wasn't just about my experience at Bonaventure, it was like when you heard the guys talk about what Michigan State life was like in the '70s and the
Mhm.
'80s, and I got there, my first year there was, 97, 98, and that class of '98 women were super tight, they're still really tight. In fact, one of them, their daughter swims for Iowa, and the Big Tens was up in Minnesota, and one of her teammates came to watch, like, well, her name's not Stover anymore, it's Hanley, but Sarah Stover went to see her ex-team or her former teammate daughter
Mhm.
swim for Iowa,
That's cool.
and she was wearing her Michigan State stuff too.
And all this, who were your idols? Because you gotta work alongside. I mean, obviously, you love those that you worked around, but was there anybody specific that influenced you and your coaching?
Well, I mean, my biggest coaching influence was my coach in school was Kevin McNamee, right? So he was my coach, and then I worked for his brother Sean, who was another huge influence on me in terms of what I did. I got to work with a lot of really good coaches at those camps I was telling you about, and I
Mhm.
got to meet a lot of people. But for me, I'll tell you what makes me super proud when you ask that question is like for me, I always was like when somebody texts me and says, "Hey man, I was thinking about you the other day because the number of times when Coach McNamee would tell us stuff, when you're 18, you don't listen, 19, you're not paying attention. But then you get
Mm.
older and you're like,
Yeah.
God damn, man, Coach was so right. Like he was so right about this and he was so right about that. And I mean, that makes me feel good if kids say, hey, gee, I remember when you said this and whatever. But I'll
Mhm.
tell you a funny story. So when I first started at Michigan State, like we had some big time people in the Big Ten, and we still did, but they started becoming more peers. And so I didn't really look up to them as much as I kind of looked across at them. But I mean, like Ray Lewis is on the Olympic staff and Mike Bottom's on the Olympic staff, and they're friends, and I
Yeah.
consider them to be colleagues, right? But when I first started as an assistant, I mean, I get on the pool deck and John Urbanchik's like this legend. These people are there. So I would go to the Big Ten meetings and we were a combined program. So Richard would take me and I would sit in on the men's meeting and he would tell me essentially like they would talk about how we're going to run things. We'd have rules meetings and stuff. And all I would do was like when everything came up for a vote, I would just look over at John Urbanchik and whatever he voted, I raise my hand up. I feel like I'm not going to vote against that guy. He's like 100,000 times smarter than I am on this stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was it. But I was very fortunate. Um, I really looked up to Dan Ross at Purdue. He was the men's coach at Purdue. Kathy Wright Eager was the women's coach at Purdue. They really
Mm.
helped me when I got the job at MSU as a head coach. Bill Dorncott was a friend. Now he's at Ohio State now, but he was at Penn State when I got the job. But people sit there and say, "Hey, who was your hero?" I mean, my hero was probably my dad because he taught me everything. And I had 3 brothers who taught me a lot too. So, but the swimming specific stuff, Rich Bader was an influence obviously on me because he hired me at Michigan State. Even
Mhm.
Jim, learned some things from him. In fact, I'll tell you, my favorite story about Jim was, do you remember, you probably don't remember him because I think he was, do you remember, Jason Fish?
Yeah,
Yeah, so wait, so you were out on that trip that we went out in California when we were out in Anaheim?
yeah, I think so. Wait, was that the hot pink shirts that everybody wore?
I
I
don't
thought
remember that. I just remember that we were out in
I was in California once, so if it's
we
only
were
went
in
once, then
Anaheim, like, we were
okay, yeah.
in, because we swam at UC Irvine. Yeah, we
Irvine,
were in
yeah.
Irvine. We stayed at that courtyard at the
Yeah.
soup plantation down the street there. Yeah, so anyway, Fish comes in and, he's not going to class. He didn't do shit the whole semester, and I remember Jim
Yeah.
looked at him and says, "Hey, man, whatever you did, I hope it was worth it." I mean, like, that's a standard one for me too, because I used to do that with the kids. Like, I'm like, "Whatever you did, I hope it was worth it, man. Like, I hope it was worth it, because you're out of school now. There's nothing we can do for you. I mean, like, you're
Uh,
gone. I mean,
yeah.
like, back then there were academic requirements. No one has that anymore because football, but
They don't have academic requirements anymore?
no, no,
Oh, shit, I didn't know
they
that.
don't take class anymore. They don't.
What? They don't have those people that come and check in to see if they're sitting in class anymore?
I doubt it.
Hmm.
As long as you're catching passes and tackling running backs, you're fine, you know?
Yeah, I forgot about that guy. Thanks for bringing him up. I remember that trip
Fish.
because I think I was rooming with like Courtney, and I just remember our heater broke, so we woke up in the middle of the night and we slept like halfway out of the door, like out of the back door because it was so hot we needed to get air. And so we just slept like half outside of the courtyard door. Just kept it open all night, not thinking about safety at the time. We like woke up halfway.
I just remember there was like yeah, that was wacko, man. Because
Yeah.
you were a freshman, right? That was
Yeah.
quite a class you had too, because you had Baranasic, like Marcina was in that class,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah,
It's been
yeah,
20 years. I just posted something
Rachel
on it.
Hagerman.
Yep.
Hagerman was in the class,
Erica
and,
Templeton.
Templeton. And her birthday's today.
Shit, is it?
Yeah. Mo was like, "Do you have some kinda thing about birthdays?" I'm like, "Well, 1, I like wishing people happy birthday, and 2, it keeps the page going. It keeps people, I don't wanna do it all the time, but I don't have anything else to do. It takes me 30 seconds." Like, it takes me
It does. It makes us feel special.
yeah, it's not like I have to climb to the top of the light tower and light it and do this. I mean, I just put a thing, yeah, it makes people
Uh,
feel special. I like wishing people
yeah,
happy birthday.
it does.
By the
I'm
way,
like, "Oh,
that's a good thing too, like, they talk about that stuff all the time, 'cause, I every once in a while, I'll tell people, like young coaches, "How can kids know that you care about them?" I'm like, "The easiest way is to wish them a happy birthday, to know that
mhm,
you care enough to know when their birthday is, and that
yeah,
you wish them happy birthday, because it means you care about the person, It's
yeah,
a simple thing to do."
yeah,
But yeah, that was, yeah, Fish. Man, you were in that class. Nick Wazowski, right?
yeah, yeah, yep,
Rudy,
Hable,
Abel, Abel.
he was so fun to argue with.
That messed up elbow that he had in that back.
I actually think of him all the time now because when they had to reattach my shoulder because of some jujitsu stuff, and, I can't move my shoulder a certain way anymore, and I think of him every time with that elbow. I'm like, "Damn it, I shouldn't have made fun of him so many years ago, it came back to bite me."
Yeah,
But, yeah, I mean, Ian was in my class too, so it was a good
that
crew.
I remember. My favorite story about that was, when we went to Purdue. You remember when we went down to Purdue and we stayed for the football game?
Yeah,
Remember that?
mhm.
We're coming home and our reservation got messed up. So I don't remember what happened, but we were supposed to eat at a restaurant in Fort Wayne, and then we didn't have it because the mess. So we went up to the next thing, and we stopped in the bus, and we gave people money, and you could go wherever you wanted to, right? So we went to Wendy's. All right, I don't know if you remember this, but we went to Wendy's, and of course,
Vaguely.
Hable was hell bent on the fact that I favored Ian. I was his son.
Yes.
You remember that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was
So anyway, we're like, they come up to me because I had the money, and they go, "Can we
uh-huh.
get Frosties?" I'm like, "No, if you want Frosties, you can buy them yourself. I'm not getting you a fucking Frosty, whatever." So we're walking back. We're walking back to the bus, and I'm behind him, and Havel's up there, and I'm sitting. I go to Ian. I'm like, "Hey, watch this." I was like, "Hey, Ian, how much did that Frosty cost?" And I pull out the money, and I'm giving it to him. He turns around, he's like, "I knew it. I knew you got I knew you favorite this." I mean, like, that was so hilarious. And Havel and his conspiracies, like his yeah, Havel
Oh,
and
I
his
love that dude.
conspiracies, man. Come on now, right?
Have you ever gone through the numbers of people that you've coached and realized how many people you've gotten to influence? Because coaching, I mean, pretty influential 4 years of usually the most pivotal point of somebody's life is college. It's where you kinda decide who you're gonna be. Have you ever done the numbers and figured out how many you've actually gotten to influence?
No. I will tell you this, though. My first year as a college assistant was at my alma mater.
Mhm.
I flew back because they were having this big reunion of all the swimming. The coach, it was a new coach or something, but he was trying to do this big deal to have honor all the old championship teams, of which I was not none of them, but it was supposed to be like this big thing. So I met up with my teammates and we're walking into this bar and we walk in, in at Bonaventure and I see the kids I coach and I ran across now these kids are like in their 40s. I'm like, so they're older.
Yeah.
And I ran across the thing and I was like super duper. I was like, hey, what's up? We're talking. I was like, I'm giving them hugs and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot. The other thing, when you add in like campers, East Lansing, I would run into people like at football games. They'd be like, hey, Coach G, what's going on? I mean, I saw you when you were like this, and now you're like, I don't know who you are. Like, I have no idea. Like, campers come in and they're like, hey, Coach G, blah, 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 backstroke drill. And that makes me proud. I mean, I just,
It
you
should.
know, yeah, I'm proud of that. And that's what makes me disappointed because I don't get to see. I mean, I don't get to see the kids anymore. I mean, every once in a while, I'll text them a happy birthday. They'll text me
Mhm.
pictures and stuff. But that was easily my favorite day of the year, was homecoming and that alumni meet, because people would come
Yeah.
back. You didn't get to see, maybe every year you didn't get to see everyone, but over a 4 or 5 year period, you would get to see some of the kids and they would bring back
Mhm.
their kids. And you know, did you swim with Chrissy Spalding? I saw her.
Mhm.
She's done like 20 years of teaching, which is so impressive. I mean, social media helps. It really helps.
Mhm.
But also helps get you angry, because I see it and I'm like, I get super pissed and I gotta log off. That's why I say being here, like in Texas, was just because I just was separated from all that stuff. There was no more, you know what I mean? I just wasn't interested in being there anymore. And
Yeah.
it was in a lot of ways, wasn't killing me, but it was just making my attitude really terrible. I mean, I have friends who I thought were
Mhm.
friends, who were friends, who I haven't spoken to in years, who I worked with, because I just have no interest in hearing about anything that's going on in Michigan State. Like, why do I care?
Don't have investment in the current events up there.
That rec center that they're building is gonna be an amazing facility.
I'm gonna have to are the maps online and stuff, or you had the
Yeah,
inside
man.
look?
If you go to Michigan State University Recreation, they have all the pictures of it, and they have like a webcam that you can see them building it. I think it opens in the fall of '26 or maybe this
Oh, crap.
early spring of '27.
Damn. I have to look it up. I know it because
I
I
mean,
really
they're
hadn't
way
watched anything.
they're way behind, they're way
Yeah.
behind. I mean, like, they have a climbing wall in there. Like, if I told you some of the stuff that we have here at Texas Tech, they're so like, Michigan State's so far behind Texas Tech. Come on.
Like, I remember they built that new gym that was in IM West, and that was like, "Oh, man, there's a nice gym in here," but now I'm like, "This really isn't that nice," comparing it to other schools. I haven't not been back since.
My little one graduated last year, and so I went back there for that.
Really?
Yeah. And then, of course, Jeremy was like, we had one swimmer left who graduated straight 4 point. She was the last one. And he goes, hey, can you come here and give her an award? Do you mind coming to the Smith Center and giving her an award? Because at first I was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to see
Mhm.
anybody. Like, I'm here to see Thomas. But then Jeremy's like, could you please? Her parents would appreciate it. And I said, oh, I'll
Jeremy
do it.
Flynn?
Yeah.
I'm guessing. Yeah.
I would talk to him. He's a really good guy. And he
Yeah.
was, I'll tell you something. They never told anybody in the Smith Center that they were gonna do this drop, and
Mhm.
and like I said, there was a number of people there and then from an academic standpoint, like, we walk across campus and people were just livid. They were like, "I can't believe they dropped your team. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous." I mean, my advice to anybody would be like, if you're gonna drop a team, you better be prepared for it, because I
Mhm.
told Bill, like, you're gonna get fired, dude. Like, you're gonna lose your job because they're gonna put you're gonna be in their crosshairs and they're coming after you. I don't think you understand what these people are like. They would get up in the morning at 6 a.m. and throw on a swimsuit and go jump in a pool outside in
Yeah.
Michigan in October. I'm like, these
It's
people are
cold.
not, they're dedicated people to this university. And I was like, you don't even have to give them scholarships. Just keep the program going. But
I mean, some of
anyway,
them even get hit by buses and still make it to s I'm guessing you recall that one.
she broke her scapula. I remember
Oh, is
Kathleen.
that what it is? I don't know what she had actually broken. I
No, she broke it, and I was out of town. I was on a cruise, and I came back, and so I'm like, "Hey, what's going on? What happened?" And she's like, "Well," Kathleen, like, back then, she was really, yeah,
Yeah.
I feel badly for her, because like I said, Eric got to move on, And I think Kathleen likes her job, but I think that she would have liked to have continued to coach. But yeah, Eric had the stones to do it. He went down and volunteered at Indiana. Then they're paying him now, and he's really made.
Damn.
I mean, he's really. I'm just so happy because there were people in our department that used to run him down all the time. Like I go,
Yeah.
people, there's talented coaches here. I mean, yeah, especially him. He didn't have a tower, so it was really hard for him to recruit
Yeah.
high level kids. But he got it done. He's doing great.
Yeah, I've seen some of the stuff that he's done, and it is pretty freaking impressive, so I'm glad. Is there anything that you've wanted to be asked or that you wish somebody had asked you about coaching that nobody has yet? Or life in general? Hell, we won't even stick it to coaching.
Life in general, no. Just live your life and be happy because I mean, I'm gonna be 56 years old, man.
God damn. You realize you're 10 years younger than me right now when you took over the Michigan State, so
Yes, I do realize that, and I see 30 kids in their 30s all the time, and I think to myself, "What in the fuck?"
Yeah.
I mean, like, I never should have gotten that job. Those people were out of their minds giving me that job.
Nah,
I
nah.
mean, 65 kids on the team. The good news is, if you remember correctly that year, was that there was a lot of buy-in. There was a lot of buy-in, and that was good. I mean, if we
Mhm.
hadn't had that, it would have been a disaster. And we kept the Jello in the mold enough where Ron Mason was like, "Hey, maybe this guy can do it. I don't really care anyway, so just he can have the job," that kind of thing.
I was sitting there with Eve when you came in, and we're like, "Oh, okay, cool." Just so you know, the team, at least from my perspective, who I was sitting around, we were happy with what was going down. So anything about coaching that you wish somebody had asked you that you haven't gotten to talk about or say?
If I get back into coaching, I'd do a lot of things differently. I certainly wouldn't be in charge and I wouldn't be the head coach. I would do things like I'm actually basically Rich's age when he started working at Michigan State and we started palling around at MSU. So
Wow.
I'm actually probably older than him, but I would be the one in the corner trying to do my best to make sure that who's ever sitting
Mhm.
in the seat and is in charge, like, don't do this or try to do this, or maybe you should try doing this, just try to be that. I mean, if I had one regret at Michigan State, I probably should have been a little more forceful asking for things because I really wasn't. The hardest part at MSU was they were always bitching about budgets. It was always budgets this,
Mhm.
budgets that. They would buy all this shit and they'd be like, well, we don't have the money. Like you worked in fear, but you worked just like, I don't know, I'm not going to make a big stink out of this stuff because I got 3 miles at home I have to feed. And, like
Mhm.
it was just, but no, I would just say be yourself and establish your culture and stick to that culture. And we were spinning off really good kids. I mean, not that we didn't. I mean, we were always spinning off good kids, but I think our life lessons and the things that we were teaching kids were really good there, and I'm pretty proud of that. But yeah, just be yourself. And I mean, you know this. I'm sure when you were training people, don't hit the
No.
street. Try to be Mannix. I mean, you got to be. You know what I mean? Like you got to be Tesla Hughes. You got to be. Like Beak. You swim with Michael? Did you swim with Michael Van Beek?
Oh, yeah. You're younger.
I mean, he's doing great, right?
I haven't talked to him. Like, we had some familiar grounds with what he was doing and what I was doing, I think, but I haven't talked to him in several years.
I miss him because, well, it's been 7 years. It'll be 7 years this October since I spoke to you. So, I mean, I miss him because
Shit,
he lived in
yeah.
Lansing and he would come by a lot and he
Aw.
was good. I mean, when he was, my daughter was doing some dumb shit. Like Michael helped out quite a bit because there were some things going on. I mean, again, Michael Van Beek, Marcus Poteet, Mark
Mhm.
Rogers. I mean, you want me to go through it all? Jason Vadney, Schemmel was the head coach out at Stanford. You can run through a litany of all these people that we
Mhm.
spun off of there. I mean, Rogers is a superstar.
You
I'm
got
trying to
lots
think
of them.
about other ones that you swam with, like the '05 kids, Yoakum and
Tony Grace.
Ellen Parker. Grace is like he's like the king of entrepreneurism
Uh,
in all of Michigan. But yeah, great kids, man. I mean, great
yeah.
kids. Yeah, because you
Yeah.
had Ellebarger and, Yoakum and that class
Mhm.
of '05 kids. Peter,
Yeah.
he's a
Politi?
responsible young man now. He's got 3 kids of
I
his own.
know! It's insane.
He just got married.
Who?
Patrick Saucedo. I texted Saucedo and I go, "Hey, Pat, I guess my invitation got lost in the mail or something?" I was just like, "What the fuck?" I've known you since you were 15 years old.
If I don't wanna keep you on here all night, even though I can ask questions for hours, but on a
Well,
serious, thanks for letting me ask you questions. Because a lot of the stuff I didn't really get to know you because I spent most of my time with Mole and stuff, and obviously knew you and respected you, but I didn't really know a whole bunch about you, so it's been kinda nice to know the different sides of Coach G over the years.
yeah.
Thanks.
I just wanna know if I did a better job than Maul did. That's the only reason I came on here.
In Mole's defense, it was only my second time doing this.
I mean, Ildiko was man, I'll tell you that one.
As soon as that episode posted, you and Mole both started messaging me, just cracking me up.
She was just she was something else. She was a great kid, and she trained really hard. She had just deep-seated issues with competition. She should have gone to the NC2As. She was good enough to go there, and she just every time we got right to here I mean, she finished 3rd at the Jan Evans Invitational one summer. She was 3rd. She went like 216, the 205. She at that point, that was world ranking. I mean, she was so good, and she would really, really tighten up as, and her and Mahaney were the same way, like, Mahaney was the same thing. He would tighten up, and, what he did was he shaved, like, a Spartan helmet into his head. I'm like, "Come on, man, this ain't Mickey. Get that shit off there. Let's go." He, I think, finished in the top 16 maybe at Olympic trials in '04 because he trained and
Damn.
yeah, man.
Right.
Well, listen, I'm gonna hit it because I'm gonna have dinner, but, let me know when the episode drops, so I'll put Kathleen on there. Make sure that every nice thing I said about her, make sure that gets in the I hope to see you soon. I don't get those letters with all that glitter in it anymore, so that's one good thing. The money with the glitter. Like, I went to the strip club, and I have to give it to the people at the over at the Spartan Fund. Like, "Where'd you get this?" "Off a bunny."
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. If you want to support the team being reinstated, go to Battle for Spartan Swim and Dive, and they have a Facebook page up. Well, they'll update you on everything that they're doing. If you can just be another voice in the fight, that would be awesome. And also, I want to thank our guest, Coach G, whom I love dearly, as well as the rest of the coaches, Paul, Kathleen, and Eric. They were a freaking phenomenal team. I wish them all the freaking best and happiness. Our website is up, halfseriouspodcast.com. We've got a merch shop on there. Tell us if it's crap or not. We're always a work in progress. It's kind of the fun of it. And then if you want to be a guest, or if you have any questions for a previous guest, email me at tess@halfseriousllc.com, and I will get the answers from you from the guest, or I'll answer whatever other questions you guys have on one of our Q&A sessions. Then lastly, if this is your first episode and you want to go back and listen to other ones, I've heard that some people have had to turn them off because there is some rather gruesome cop stories on here because it is very real. So I do caution some of you guys, if this is your first one, all right, that's it. You guys have a freaking phenomenal week.